Destiny family, welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to start by asking a question, which is why the Windrush saga will never go away. Actually, that's not a question, is it? That's not quite a question. Okay, I'm a bit embarrassed. Okay. Drink my cheers. Well, this bottle was actually given to me by my daughter. She bought it from me. So now I'm just going to drink water and mind my business. Okay, so that's like a rhetorical question. Quite recently, it was announced that King Charles has commissioned a total of 12 portraits to be made to commemorate the first set of Caribbean people who came to the UK in 1948. Later, they were known as the Windrush generation. So these portraits will become a part of the Royal Collection and displayed at, I think it's 2 locations that they have slated where it will be displayed later on in this year. As this news came out, my mind was immediately taken back to the Windrush situation because I'm not sure if it will ever go away. So for those, and I must apologize for the noise if you're hearing noise in the background. It's my lunchtime and I decided that I would quickly catch up with you on this. So for those who were not aware of what Windrush is all about, I am going to tell you what Windrush is all about. So why did the Windrush scandal happen? The Windrush scandal began to surface in 2017 after it emerged that hundreds of Commonwealth citizens, many of whom were from the Windrush generation, had been wrongly detained, deported, and denied legal rights. Now, this was uncovered in 2017 by the Guardian journalist Amelia Gentleman, who investigated and began reporting their experiences. Now, this did not just happen in 2017, but to say that, as a matter of fact, it actually started in 2012, but this was only investigated. You know, a journalist, when they get hold of a story, they do their investigation. So this story was only brought to the forefront in 2017 by Amelia Gentleman. So they were investigated and began reporting their experiences. As these shocking stories hit the headline, Caribbean leaders were prompted to ask questions of the UK government to find out what was happening and how that came about. Now, let me tell you what really is the Windrush generation. Commonwealth citizens were affected by the government harsh or hostile environment legislation, a policy which was announced in 2012. This tasked the NHS, landlords, banks, employers, and many other enforcing immigration controls. It aimed to make the UK unlivable for undocumented migrants and to ultimately push them to leave. So you perhaps are thinking, but this is fair, you know, if you are undocumented, then of course you should not be in the country. However, with the Windrush generation, this is different. The Windrush generation actually arrived as children on their parents' passport. So there was a time when people were not required to actually present passports for children. Originally, some people came over, they helped the UK, you know, to fight their wars, etc. So let's go back to it. The Windrush generation have arrived as children on their parents' passports. And the Home Office destroyed thousands of landing cards and other records. Many lacked the documentation to prove their right to remain in the UK. So at that time, you could simply just come over on your parents' documents. You did not need to apply for your own passport. Now, when the rule came about in 2012, where undocumented people were asked to leave, of course, these people did not have the documentation to prove. And because they did not have the documentation to prove, of course, their rights that were given from way back then were immediately revoked unconditionally. Now, some people would say that this was unfair, but when the deportation and the detention started, this was not made public. So this was taking place without the public being knowledgeable that it was taking place until 2017, when it was brought to the public's attention. So, you would imagine that some of these people were falsely deemed as illegal immigrants or undocumented migrants, and of course they started losing their housing, their health care, their bank accounts, and their driving license. As a result of that, many people were not able to work at that time. The policies, okay, so that happened in 2017. It was brought to the forefront. In 2018, what happened was that the Home Office actually decided that they would do some investigation to actually help or to right the wrongs that they have done. Because when they did their investigation, they realized that actually what they did was not fair, it was illegal, and that they had to do something about it. In 2018, what they decided to do after the investigation was that they actually promised that they would right their wrongs by making changes to the way that people were treated. As a result of that, when they decided that, okay, they need to make changes, in 2019, as a part of the change, what was promised was compensation. So this compensation was promised in 2018. But investigation was done that proved that some of the promises actually were not followed. So the compensation scheme was actually set up, but like I have said, what they realized in 2021, when they went back, they realized that the promises were not being honored, and they also found that only 5.8% of the people who were believed to be eligible for the compensation had actually received a payment. And shockingly, 23 people died even before their compensation was processed. So what made it difficult for people to prove what was happening? As a matter of fact, what made it so difficult was that people were being asked to provide evidence of the trauma that they had been through. Obviously, there are some things that you cannot prove, because how can you provide evidence for trauma that you have been through? So because of this, like I have said, a lot of people could not, even though they fall into the category where they deserve compensation, they were not compensated because of what was required, because there were some things that you could not prove. Because like I've said, how can you prove trauma? And as a matter of fact, even when you were going through your trauma leading up, some people would not have had like the money to go to go for counseling or anything like that, because like I've said, their access to NHS, to housing, everything was taken away. So that was in 2021. In 2022, an independent report warns the department is running the risk of another Windrush style scandal if it failed to act now to make meaningful changes to its culture, its systems and policies, talking about the Home Office. So that was in 2022. By October of 2022, there was a new Home Secretary. By January, remember, new Home Secretary in October of 2022, and by January of 2023, the new Home Secretary announced that her department, which is the Home Office, would be abandoning the plan altogether. So all the plan that went into the review to say these are the changes that you need to make to ensure that things are now up to standard. By January 2023, everything was announced that they were going to abandon that plan. So what do you have? Things remain the same with very little change. So not much has changed. To date, what has happened as of January 2023, it shows that 100 claimants had received compensation offers of over £1 million. And remember, these are offers that they had received. So what will happen now? So you can understand why the announcement that 10 portraits will be made to commemorate, the first set of migrants from the Caribbean actually coming to the UK. You can understand why people will have mixed feelings about that, because it could be seen that people are taking advantage of other people's trauma. What do I mean? So these portraits will be made, they will be displayed, and of course they will belong to the Royal Collection of Portraits. So when you look into it, okay, if they are going to be displayed at two different locations, I think one of the location is in Edinburgh, chances are people will have to pay in order to go in and view these portraits. So you could see where people could assume that people are trying to profit from other people's trauma. You can also see where not many people will welcome this announcement with open arms or will be happy about it. I think that people would more be willing to see to it that the Windrush generation, that they are properly compensated for the trauma that they have been through, and for changes to be made to ensure that the hostile environment doesn't happen and that other people do not have to go through the same experience. What do you think, my Destiny family? Do you think that the scandal will ever go away? Do you think that the announcement of the portrait is not going to get the desired, reaction? Because there will always be the shadow hanging over everybody's head to say, look, people were treated unfairly, and on top of them that they were not compensated. Let me know what you think, my Destiny family. Until I upload another video, I'm going to say thank you for watching this video, and I must say thank you always for your support. I'm sorry about the noise that you probably have had to endure throughout this video. Thank you, my Destiny family. Take care of yourselves.